I want to tell you about a show I watched when I was a kid. I don't know if it ever really existed. It was called Cove. It aired, if that's the word, in the early 70s on a tiny local station. Once a week. Always at an odd time. Like someone squeezed it between the weather and dead air. It was a puppet show. That's what we called it anyway. The main character was a little girl named Janice. She didn't have the glossy look of TV kids. Her hair looked cut at home. Her dress never fit right. She spoke to puppets that seemed handmade from scraps, painted wooden faces that chipped over time, cloth stitched from mismatched fabric, glass eyes that didn't align. When they moved, it wasn't smooth. Strings jerked, elbows caught. Their mouths opened a fraction too wide, like something forced them to mimic speech. I remember the title card, a black screen with a ring of candles guttering in slow motion, wax sliding like tears. A tinny melody played over it, the kind you hear from a broken carousel. Sometimes it wobbled off key, then corrected itself, as if an invisible hand steadied it. Janice would arrive at a place that changed every episode. A wharf with stitched waves, a rocky cave with candles shoved into cracks, a crooked ship on a stage that tilted too far. She'd call out to her friends, and they would come. The good ones had names I can't fully remember. A small sailor with buttons for eyes, a nervous parrot whose beak never closed on beat. There was a villain, too, with a painted mustache that twitched at the wrong moments. He was theatrical. You could tell he was supposed to be funny. And then there was the one no one laughs at when we talk about it now. The one we all remember in the same breath. The Skin Taker. He was a tall puppet with a skeletal face and a jaw made of metal that clacked when he spoke. He wore a cloak sewn from patchwork tan and brown, uneven textures that looked like dried things left out in the sun. Sometimes the cloak moved when he didn't. Sometimes it bulged at the shoulder, as if something inside shifted into place. One episode is stamped into me. Janice asked in that careful child's voice, "Why do you wear that cloak?" The metal jaw clicked, scraped, clicked again, and he said something I can only paraphrase now. It wasn't played for laughs. It was said plain, like an answer you don't want. That would be the part adults would say we imagined, except too many of us remember it. Years later, I tried to find the show. Videotapes, old schedules, anything. There was nothing. No listing, no archive. Just a dead channel number that never existed. I thought I'd dreamed the whole thing until I found a message board thread. Does anyone remember Cove? The replies changed everything. People remembered the title card. They remembered the ship that tilted too far. They remembered Janice's homemade look and the puppet's jerks. The way the strings cast spiderweb shadows. Someone remembered the intro voice. Not a narrator. More like a man too close to the microphone, breathing through his nose, saying the show name like a warning. Another person remembered the candles never burned down. The wax fell, but the candles didn't shorten. A loop that pretended to move. A lot of us remembered the wrongness in the timing, jokes landing a beat late or too early, laughter from somewhere off-screen once cut off mid-laugh, a scene change that happened while Janice was still talking, so her mouth moved in a new place without sound for one breath. The forum pulled up specific episodes. The one where Janice visited the caves and the candles blew in a wind that didn't move anything else. The one on the ship where the deck slanted so steeply, you could see the stage hand's shadow straining to keep puppets upright. The one where the villain tried to steal a key from inside a clock and the hand skipped numbers. Then we got to the episodes no one likes to describe. One person said there was an episode with no dialogue. Janice stood in the middle of a room while all the puppets gathered around her in a ring. No one spoke. The camera didn't cut. You could see the edges of the set, raw wood and staples. The only sound was a hum from the lights, or the tape or something behind the walls. 5 minutes, 10, then a slow zoom into Janice's face. Someone said they could see a tear on her cheek that never fell. The zoom kept going until you could only see her eye. Then static. Another person swore there was an episode that was only screaming. Every character in their spot, mouths open. 30 minutes. No music. No movement. Just that. Some of us said we turned the dial away, and when we flicked back, the screaming was exactly where we left it, like it was waiting for us to return. A few of us had parents who caught us watching. Those stories line up too closely to ignore. A mother heard a child's laughter from the living room and came in to see what was so funny. The child was staring at static. No puppets, no Janice, just noise and snow. The child insisted she was watching the show. The mother turned the TV off and the child cried, saying the best part was coming. The mother turned it back on, and the snow showed a frame for a heartbeat that wasn't snow at all. Then normal static again. The mother told the story decades later and said she still felt cold thinking about it. Someone else said they tried to record it. The tape played back fine for the news leading up to it, and fine for a commercial. And then nothing but a time code in the corner, and a long, thin tone you could only hear if you turned the volume all the way up with your ear pressed to the speaker. Their father yelled from the kitchen to turn it down because it hurt his teeth. We each had a detail we thought only we remembered. The skin taker's cloak trembling when no one was touching it. Janice looking at the wrong puppet when she spoke, as if listening to something off to the side. A shot that held too long on a doorway where no one stood. The frame edging inward as if the room took a breath. It got worse the deeper into the thread we went. People started remembering a pattern. Candle Cove didn't always air at the same time. It slipped, like a station someone forgot to lock. The night the station went off early, some of us watched the empty broadcast, and the title card appeared anyway, the candles flickering in the black. The clock on the VCR blinked 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock for the entire half hour without moving. When the show ended, the clock jumped to the rook time. Someone claimed they found a prop at a yard sale. A puppet's hand carved from wood, with tiny holes where strings laced through. They brought it home and left it on a shelf. At night it knocked once, a hollow tap from inside the wood, and in the morning it was turned to face the wall. They threw it away. It was back on the shelf that afternoon. They moved. Then there were the drawings. Teachers kept some from children who misbehaved. We described them to each other. Little stick people under tall, thin shapes with no faces. Long coats drawn in brown crayon. A parrot with a black beak and no eyes. A girl with a crooked dress and a speech bubble drawn as a straight line. Someone brought up the skin taker again. Said there was an episode where he didn't speak at all, just stood at the mast while the others fussed around him. The wind sound picked up, but none of the cloth moved. He lifted his head slowly with that metal jaw half open, and though he didn't say a word, all of us remembered understanding him. It felt like a promise. I kept reading until I realized the thread had stopped updating. The final post ended mid-sentence. I refreshed. Nothing. I emailed the site admin, and the mail bounced. When I tried to find the page again a week later, the entire forum was gone, replaced by a hosting error and a white box that blinked before the browser closed itself. It should have ended there. It didn't. I turned on my TV late one night to the channel that shouldn't exist, out of habit, like touching a scar. The house was quiet, the screen was dark, then a circle of small, guttering lights swam up from the black. Candles, or a loop of something that wanted to be candles. The melody came after. That off-key carousel tune. It wavered, then righted, then wavered again. I knew I should turn it off. I didn't. The camera cut to a set I recognized. The cave with candles in every crack. Wax shone on wet rock. Janice stood in the center in her too-tight dress, hands clasped like she'd been told to wait. The puppets gathered. A sailor, the parrot, the mustached man, the skin taker in his stitched cloak. No one spoke. The camera didn't move for a long time. The hum under the audio deepened, the way transformers hum on cold nights. Somewhere far off, a microphone picked up a cough that wasn't part of the show. Janice breathed in. The sailor's head tilted the wrong way. The parrot's beak clicked shut offbeat. I said out loud, without meaning to, "Why did we watch this?" The skin taker's jaw lifted a fraction of an inch. Metal on metal. I felt it in my teeth. And then the screen turned to static. Not white noise, not random. Patterns swam in it if you stared long enough. A face for a frame. A candle that didn't burn down. A cave that wasn't big enough for the number of shadows in it. The hum rose until I had to turn the volume down. But when I did, the hum got louder, as if it moved out of the speakers into the room. The candles flickered at the edge of my vision, and when I blinked, there was only snow. I turned the TV off. In the glass, I saw my living room. And for a heartbeat, I saw the cave instead, like the set had been there all along under a thin layer of my life. When I told this to someone later, they said the adults always saw static. The children always saw the show. I asked which I was now. When I try to explain why Candle Cove works the way it does, I come back to this. It didn't ask us to believe anything impossible. It didn't show monsters or blood. It showed a child waiting in places that felt unsafe. It let the camera hold too long. It let silence do most of the talking. It crept into the hour when you're too tired to question, and then it wouldn't leave. There are people who say none of this happened. That a user on the internet wrote a convincing thread, and the rest is copycats. That no station could air a show like that without someone noticing. They point to the lack of tapes, the empty schedules, the dead company name on the invoice for a slot that never existed. They say we are remembering together because we want to be scared. Maybe they're right. Maybe this is all a trick of nostalgia sharpened by time. Maybe a looped title card and a broken melody got stuck in a handful of minds that needed a ghost. Or maybe the show was never a show. Maybe it wore a show the way the skin taker wore his cloak. I don't have proof. I only have what we share, the candles that never shrink, the metal jaw that clacks even when no one is touching it, the episode where everyone screamed for 30 minutes without moving, the episode where no one spoke for 10, the mothers who saw static, the children who didn't. The way the picture held on a doorway, a breath too long, and the doorway seemed to breathe back. Sometimes, late at night, when the TV goes to snow, I turn the sound down and listen anyway. The hum is there, under the silence, steady and patient. If I stare long enough, I can almost make out a shape in the noise. A little girl waiting, a ring of candles that never melt, a cloak that trembles even when everything else is perfectly still. And somewhere just beneath the static, a jaw opens and shuts, metal grinding softly, as if a voice is practicing how to be heard again. If you see it, don't call out. If you hear it, don't answer. Candle Cove doesn't end when the broadcast stops. It ends when you stop remembering, and it's getting harder to forget.